It was the first day of the new semester, and the air in Ridgewood High was already buzzing with restless energy. Students dragged their backpacks across the tiled hallway floors, sneakers squeaking, laughter echoing against lockers that had witnessed years of secrets, fights, and gossip. But among the chatter, a certain tension lurked. The kind of tension that always surfaced when the bullies roamed freely. Ridgewood High had its predators, and they were not afraid to show their fangs. The notorious trio, Chase, Derek, and Logan, had built a reputation for being untouchable. They were the kind of boys who thrived on fear, their arrogance feeding off the silence of their victims. Teachers dreaded teaching their classes, students avoided crossing their paths, and parents whispered about them in hushed tones during PTA meetings. They were a storm no one dared to confront. That morning, the storm was about to meet something it had never faced before. The classroom door opened with a soft creak, and in walked the new teacher. She carried herself with a calmness that almost felt unusual for someone stepping into a lion's den. Her name was Miss Alina Carter, a young woman in her late 20s, with sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing, and a quiet smile that disarmed those who stared too long. She wasn't dressed like the stiff, fearful teachers the bullies loved to torment. She wore a simple white blouse and black trousers, her hair tied neatly back. To the untrained eye, she looked fragile, almost too gentle for the chaos of Ridgewood High. But there was something else in her presence, something invisible but undeniable. It was the way she walked, not timidly, but with a steady rhythm, like each step was grounded in unshakable balance. The students whispered as she wrote her name on the board. Miss Carter. Some leaned forward with curiosity, others slouched with disinterest, but 3 pairs of mocking eyes locked onto her, calculating her every move. Chase leaned back in his chair, smirking, his sneakers kicked onto the desk in defiance. Derek tapped his pencil against his arm, muttering jokes under his breath, while Logan cracked his knuckles slowly, staring at the teacher like a cat studying prey. For them, a new teacher was always an opportunity, a chance to break someone, to prove dominance once again. Miss Carter turned to face the class, her smile soft but unwavering. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Miss Carter, and I'll be teaching you English literature this semester. I believe we'll get along just fine as long as we respect one another." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a firmness that hushed the whispers. The students blinked at her, unused to hearing such calm confidence in this chaotic environment. Still, the bullies weren't impressed. Chase leaned forward, cupping his hands around his mouth. "Hey, miss, are you sure you're in the right place? You don't look like you can handle us." His friends chuckled, fueling his boldness. The class tensed, eyes darting between the new teacher and the trio. Most teachers would have already lost control at this point, stumbling, stuttering, trying to demand respect that never came. But Miss Carter didn't flinch. She simply tilted her head, studying Chase for a long moment before replying. "I think I'm exactly where I need to be," she said softly. That answer silenced some of the laughter, though Derek scoffed loudly. "Bet she cries before the week is over," he muttered. Logan grinned. "Nah, I give her till lunch." The lesson began, though the bullies made it impossible to focus. They whispered crude jokes, threw paper balls across the room, and muttered insults whenever Miss Carter's back was turned. The rest of the class tried to focus, but their shoulders were tense, waiting for the inevitable explosion. Yet Miss Carter never raised her voice. She moved through the classroom, speaking with clarity, ignoring the taunts, her composure unshaken. That was when Chase decided to push further. He hated being ignored. He leaned back in his chair, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Hey, Miss Carter, is that the best you got? You gonna teach us poems while we laugh at you? Maybe you should just—" He didn't finish his sentence. Instead, he lunged forward, snatching at her blouse as she walked past. The sound of fabric tearing filled the air. Gasps erupted across the classroom. Miss Carter's shirt ripped at the shoulder, the white fabric dangling, leaving the room frozen in stunned silence. For a split second, everything stopped. Even the other 2 bullies widened their eyes in disbelief. No one had ever dared to do something that bold in front of the entire class. But Chase had done it, and now everyone waited for the reaction. Some students expected her to scream, others thought she would run out crying. That's what always happened. Bullies ripped apart teachers and teachers broke down. That was the cycle. But Miss Carter wasn't like the others. She straightened slowly, her eyes narrowing, and for the first time, her calm aura shifted. She wasn't angry. No, it was something colder, sharper. She turned toward Chase, her torn blouse barely acknowledged, and in that stillness, Chase suddenly felt something he hadn't felt before, unease. He smirked to cover it. What? Can't handle a joke, he sneered. The next moment happened so fast, no one could process it. Miss Carter's hand shot forward, gripping Chase's wrist with surprising strength. With one fluid motion, she pivoted her body, her hip slamming into position. The world seemed to blur as she executed a perfect judo throw. Chase's feet lifted off the ground, his body flipping over her shoulder before crashing onto the floor with a thud that shook the classroom. Gasps erupted, chairs screeched as students jumped to their feet, mouths hanging open in disbelief. Chase groaned on the ground, clutching his back, his arrogance shattered in an instant. Miss Carter didn't yell. She didn't boast. She simply stood tall, adjusting her blouse as if nothing had happened. Her eyes scanned the room, finally landing on Derek and Logan, who were frozen in their seats, pale-faced and wide-eyed. "Respect," she said quietly, "is not optional in this classroom." The silence that followed was deafening. No one had ever seen a teacher stand up to the bullies, let alone throw one of them across the room. Whispers spread like wildfire, disbelief mixing with awe. Some students covered their mouths, others stared with shining eyes, as if they had just witnessed a superhero reveal their powers. Derek muttered something under his breath, but even he didn't dare move. Logan swallowed hard, his bravado evaporating. Miss Carter turned back to the board, her voice calm once again. "No, as I was saying, Shakespeare believed that true power lies not in words alone, but in action. Let's see if we can understand that better." The class stared at her in stunned silence, but slowly pens began to scratch paper, eyes darting between their books and the woman who had just shattered the balance of power in Ridgewood High. For the first time, the bullies weren't the ones commanding the room. Respect had shifted, and everyone knew nothing would ever be the same again.